Okay, one afternoon we were sitting out and observing some of our bees from this colony coming and going on the landing board. And this colony of bees are Saskatraz bees. They have a Saskatraz queen. But what I started noticing were these little common local sweat bees, Lasioglossum, and obviously there's one housefly too. But notice that these bees are so much smaller than the honeybees. But yet they seem to be not very afraid of the honeybees. And in fact, it looked like, as you'll see later on, that the sweat bees were almost intimidating the guard bees. And the sweat bees would pretty much hold their ground until maybe one of the guard bees came up and actually touched it. Or as you'll see later on here, one of the guard bees actually was able to grab one of the sweat bees in its mandibles. Now I don't know if, because this colony is Saskatraz bees, and they're usually pretty gentle. I mean, I was sitting filming this within 18-20 inches and never got bothered by the bees, even the guard bees. But I just started watching the interactions between the honeybees of this colony with these little sweat bees. And there were like 4 and 5 at a time. And the sweat bees would just kind of hold their ground, as you see here. And it almost looks like the honeybees, the guard bees, are maybe a little intimidated by these little bees. I'm not sure why. They're so much bigger. And there's a guard bee, and you see it just reared up. Its mandibles were wide open. And it kind of drove off one of the sweat bees. But again, the sweat bees didn't appear that they were trying to get into the colony. So I'm not sure the reasons why they were there, other than maybe they were just having some fun. Maybe they were just trying to intimidate the honeybees. I really don't know. So unless a guard bee actually came up and touched it, or really moved very, very, very close to the sweat bees pretty much held their ground. They didn't move. Now here's a honeybee that has actually caught one of the sweat bees. She's trying to sting it. She's trying to kill it, probably. And then she falls off the edge of the landing board. As soon as they hit the ground, both bees separated, and the sweat bee that had it in its mandibles and was trying to kill it came right back up to the landing board. So apparently that little sweat bee was not too intimidated or injured. There, a guard bee just touched the little sweat bee with its antenna, and that was enough to drive it off. A lot of bees at the entrance starting to fan. It was a pretty warm afternoon, and probably trying to get some circulation going into the interior of the hive. But notice how close these little sweat bees are to all of these honeybees. I don't know if it's just the nature of the Saskatraz bees that they don't get really aggressive even to these little sweat bees, or maybe they just don't perceive them as much of a threat, but more of a nuisance. So there's a guard bee that kind of actively went off, and not very far, but it did drive off that little sweat bee. So when you should sit out and watch your colonies at the entrance, sometimes you see some really interesting behavior like this, and it's a good way to learn things about bees and your colonies. Look at that guard bee, all had its mandibles open. Kind of drove that little bee off. Now, when these little sweat bees took flight, that really got the attention of the guard bees, and they really tried to come forward to come after them. But a lot of the time, the sweat bees could just stand there facing the honeybees and not be bothered. So sometimes you can see some really interesting behavior if you watch your landing port. So I hope you enjoyed this, and please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.